What is it like to be the managing director of a small independent tax business? What would you do? What would you be responsible for? Would you still get involved in tax work? You're about to get a full insight into this role in this episode through the eyes of Angela Wood, Managing Director of ETC Tax. You're listening to episode 94 of the Tax Professionals podcast, the podcast that helps you and other tax professionals to progress, develop, and improve your careers.
Welcome to the Tax Professionals podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your tax career. Here's your host, Jack Bonehill.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode. I think this episode is making history for the podcast because this is the second consecutive episode of the Tax Roll Insight series in a row, and that's never happened before, I don't think anyway. And like with the last episode with Sam Hart, which was all about what it's like to be a CIOT examiner, this episode gives you an insight into another rare role, what it's like to be a managing director of a small tax boutique. You could get a role like this by joining an established business, maybe purchasing one, or by building your own firm up from nothing. The last two certainly come with a large amount of risk and effort needed from you. And so before going down one of those routes, you want to be pretty sure that you'd like the role right. And the beauty of a role like this is that you can basically craft it into whatever you'd like it to be, within reason, of course. The most difficult part of doing that will be making sure that you've got the right staff around you. In the episode, you'll get to hear an overview of Angela's tax career, her remit when she started working for ETC Tax and what it looks like now, what ETC looked like when Angela first got involved, the challenge with having the right amount of staff and other challenges in her role, how winning work works at ETC, how much Angela gets involved in the doing of tax work and her normal working hours, what drives Angela to keep going, and finally, her advice for anyone that's considering doing something similar. Rough timings for each section of this episode can be found in the details section of the episode within your podcast player of choice, or by heading on over to the taxprofessionalspodcast.com/TTPP94. That link is the show notes for this episode, and the link includes all links mentioned throughout the episode. As always with Tax Roll Insights episodes, I hope you do get a good insight into this role to help you to decide what you'd like to do with your tax career. If you want to be a good tax advisor, then you need to crack the skill of being able to provide excellent tax advice, the type of advice that clients are happy to pay for and that helps them as much as possible. And doing the CTA qualification definitely helps with learning how to do this. You'll be decent after doing the CTA, but you'll still have plenty of room for improvement. And that makes sense. Qualifications can only do so much, because after all, you are assessed in an exam sitting, which doesn't exactly get the best out of people. However, the better you are at providing advice, the more likely you are to get repeat business from clients, the more likely you are to get referrals, and the easier you'll make your manager's life when it comes to reviewing your work. You'll become a more valuable member of staff, and as a consequence, you can become more senior and better paid. The list goes on. And this is where the Tax Advice Masterclass comes in. It's designed to teach you how to provide the best tax advice possible. You can get full details by heading on over to the taxprofessionalspodcast.com/masterclasses, and the next one is in February 2024. Feel free to message me with any questions, and it'll be great to see you or some people from your firm there. Without further ado, let's get to the episode. If you don't mind off then, Angela, just to start us off, could you tell us a little bit about you and your tax career to date?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think I've not really had a sort of traditional route into tax, I suppose, as such. Although when I first started, I worked for Arthur Andersen, as was then. So I worked in their wealth and tax, private client tax department for 4 years. I did my ATT with them. Although midway through that, about 2 years in, Arthur Andersen was no more and became Deloitte overnight. So it was 2 years with Arthur Andersen, 2 years with Deloitte. So that was my intro to tax, I suppose. So that is a sort of more traditional route. So it's a graduate scheme, all that kind of thing, pretty standard. But I'd always wanted to study law. And I'd sort of thought about doing that when I first went to university and then didn't. And so somewhere along the line, I can't quite remember how and why, when I was at Deloitte/Andersen, I just got a bit sort of refocused on law and started to retrain as a lawyer. So did that part-time when I was at Deloitte, and then got a training contract as a trainee solicitor at Addershaw Goddard. And so did a training contract for a couple of years and then qualified into tax law, so in their commercial tax team. So that's where I then stayed for about 8 years before joining ETC. So yeah, probably not sort of your standard route or your standard tax career as such. I did my CTA with Addershaw's actually. But that was how I came to be where I am now, I suppose.
Yeah. So I knew that you were a trained like solicitor, lawyer, whatever you want to call it, because I'm never really sure what the right word is to describe the legal people. But so you actually started just as a normal tax person, I'm going to call it. You then trained in the legal side, and then you kind of almost like come from full circle in a way when you moved to ECC tax. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It wasn't sort of, when I say it wasn't a normal tax, or it hasn't been a normal tax career, the first part of it was because I did join a tax graduate scheme, with Arthur Anderson. So yeah, that was like normal. And I say, did my ATT there. Just because I was only there 4 years, we did like something called financial planning certificates and advanced financial planning certificates. So which is why I never did my CTA with them, because we did the ATT and the FPC. But then, yeah, so then I retrained as a lawyer. Yeah, did say qualified as a solicitor. That's right, what you said. And then did my CTA as a solicitor. So yeah, I've always been in tax, I suppose, apart from a very brief stint when I first left uni, but we're not talking about that today. But yeah, but I've always been in tax, but yeah, just slightly different angle, I suppose.
So what is it that made you move to ETC tax? And I suppose also how is it born? Because am I right in describing you as like an independent tax firm or tax business?
Absolutely.
How would you describe it? I suppose maybe that's a better thing to
Yeah,
ask.
then there's lots of different ways to describe it, aren't there? People refer to like boutique firms, independent tax consultants, but all of those things apply really. But yeah, I mean, we are. So ETC is an independent tax consultancy, i.e. we are purely focused on tax advice, and we're not we don't have a bigger network. We're not part of a bigger accounting firm or anything. We purely focus on tax, and we are an independent practice. So in terms of, what that looks like, we've actually founded by my husband, Andy Wood, who's actually no longer involved in the business, but he founded the business originally around sort of 2013, 14. And then I left my law career to join ETC and just come and work with Andy, really. So yeah, just decided to make the leap back from law back into sort of more traditional tax career, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. So how can you decide to do that then? Because like from my perspective, that seems quite risky, right? Because you've got like your secure job, let's call it. You've got Andy, your husband, that's doing the business, and then
Yeah,
suddenly you're both on the business, and so you're both reliant on that as like a source of income,
yeah,
presuming.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, there's a personal aspect to it because when Andy and I both met, many years ago, we both always wanted to run our own business. So it was kind of a question of who did it first and when, really. Although he's slightly more, I wouldn't say slightly more driven, but he was slightly more motivated to do it. So he obviously set up ETC, and then so I was practicing as a lawyer. And I think, the reason why I left law at that time ultimately was family reasons. So I'd had a couple of kids by then. It just wasn't working for me to stay in the law. Like I was literally working. I mean, I don't know if you listen to much about law and the legal profession, but I was literally working till the early hours. I mean, when I was 36 weeks pregnant, I worked till sort of 3 a.m. and then started work again at 7 a.m. the next day. So it just wasn't working. And although I'd really wanted to work in law and tax law, I just thought, well, this clearly doesn't work for my family. And basically, Andy just said, well, listen, I'm running a tax business. You're a tax professional. Come and work with me. So that's why I did it. And yeah, of course, it's a risk because both of you are then essentially self-employed. But by that time, Andy had started to get some momentum, and I just thought, it was a good opportunity, really. Get involved.
So when you first got involved, then like what was your remit at that point? 'Cause I know it's very different now, isn't it, since Andy's left the business?
Yeah, it's completely changed, I suppose. I've been with ETC 9 years now. It's 9 years just gone in January. So yeah, when I first started, it was literally a case of Andy saying, just come and get involved. And that really meant just doing tax work, tax consultancy, tax advice. And that's probably what I did, but not for very long. I mean, I've done that and stood in that. We'll come back to that in a minute, maybe. But what I mean by not for very long is I probably only spent the first, 6 or 7 months doing that for the majority of my time. And then I started to do more of the operational stuff. So just looking at things like, making sure engagement letters are right, our systems, our processes, our IT, doing some of the HR and finance stuff. I can't quite remember the timeline, but started doing that quite quickly. And at some point, I do remember Andy said, well, joke, and he said, we may as well call yourself MD. And I said, yeah, all right then. I'll call myself managing director. Great, good idea. so that's what I did. And then I can't quite remember when that was, but yeah, so then I became essentially MD and all that entails really. But yeah, when I first started, it was very much just get stuck in and do the tax work really, because that was where the greatest need was.
Yeah, yeah. I always find titles quite funny because when I was technically probably still a trainee, I broached the partner and said, I think it would look better on my email and clients will come to me more and trust me more if it said consultant instead. So we literally just changed the name to consultant, whereas really there was no difference to what I was doing before or after. But it creates a different perception in people's minds, doesn't it? I think particularly clients, like when they see trainee or assistant, they probably think, oh, you don't know what you're on about, even if you do. And so then they talk to the people who they think do know, which is usually a manager or the partner or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jack. And I think you're funny enough, we don't call our trainees trainees. We just call them tax advisors. We don't call them trainee tax advisors. They know what they are training because for that very reason. I mean, actually, it probably slight digression, but I hate titles. I jokingly said I gave myself the title MD, but I hate titles. If I could get rid of them, I probably would. But a lot of people quite like titles and all that comes with that. But I think sometimes it's just a red herring.
Yeah. It distracts from probably what's important.
Well, it's important to a lot of people, and say I'm not certainly our firm. We have titles at ETC, but I just mean it can confuse matters, and I think for a small firm especially, because people come in with lots of different experiences, and some experiences at bigger firms or mid-sized firms or small firms. One senior manager might not be the same as another senior manager in terms of their experience and their attitude and all that kind of stuff. So it's quite difficult sometimes in a small firm to have those really rigid titles, actually.
Absolutely. And really, you can have one senior manager that does something completely different to another senior manager. So I have that in my current team, whereas I am definitely more responsible for the operational side of things of the team. And the other senior manager, is very much responsible for dealing with like internal queries and like delivering those things. So our roles are completely different, but we have the same title.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, probably not one for today, but that's caused me a lot of issues in the past, actually, in terms of running ETC titles, which is probably why I'm not a fan. But just because people can't, and I understand that. I understand that for some people it's a motivation having a good title and whatever, but it can cause headaches as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So what did the business look like then when you first got involved, and how has it kind of changed then since? Because I think you said at your peak you had something like 22 staff.
We did. It's been a bit of a journey, really. No, so when I can't quite remember where we were when I literally joined Andy. I think, well, again, don't want to go through and say the whole history of ETC. I can, but I don't think that interesting for your listeners. But Andy had a business partner when I joined, who again left not long after, actually, about a year after I joined. I don't think I pushed him out. I think that was personal reasons for him. But so him and Andy were running the business together. He was more on the accountancy side. So at that point, there was a bit of accountancy work that we were doing, or the version of ETC that was then was doing some accountancy work. And then when his business partner left, we got, we stopped doing the accountancy work entirely and just focused purely on the tax advice and tax consultancy. So I think there was Andy, his business partner. There were a couple of trainees, probably more on the accountancy side, and then I think that was probably it. And then we, shortly after I joined, we recruited sort of like a PA office administrator, and then we just kind of carried on growing from there, really. And you're right, we got up to, I think, 22 people, and I can't quite remember when that was, but maybe around 2018. And, we grew relatively quickly, I suppose. Probably 2015 was when we really started trading. So in 3 years, we've grown really quite quickly. There's lots of stories around that. I mean, it was great, and we had some really good times, and, we had some really good team members, but I think we'd grown with no clear strategy, really, if I'm honest. And, tax people are really hard to come by. So we just kind of gone, oh yeah, crap, let's recruit. And not really a huge plan behind that. And I think, the reason probably why we've now shrunk, so I think we're 14 currently, is because, some of those people weren't right for us and we weren't right for them. And, that's where we kind of, took a kind of a deliberate step back, but also, we just got regrouped now, really.
And would you say then now you're like kind of more stable? Because obviously one of the things I would be worried about, I suppose, in your shoes is make sure you have enough people to deliver work that you have, but you don't have too many people. But you can always keep them busy at the same time in a way, so no one's just sat there doing nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're spot on. It's a real chicken and egg, isn't it? Because you don't want to get to the point clearly where you can't deliver good client service because you haven't got the right number of people, but you don't want to have people sitting around doing nothing. And, the thing that if I was going to focus on anything in our chat today, I'd probably be talking about in terms of running a small business is, especially small tax practices, recruitment. I mean, everyone talks about recruitment being hard, but tax recruitment especially so. I speak to other business owners all the time, clients and just peers, different industries and things. Everyone finds recruitment hard. But I think tax recruitment, the market is small. When I've been to TIOT events, I've talked to some of the membership team about how many people are actually in the tax market and how many people are qualified in tax. I can't remember what the number was, but it's really, really small. I think, I can't remember, I wish I could, but it was, it was like a tenth of the number of accountants, for example, that are qualified.
Yeah.
People recruitment is the hardest thing, and getting the numbers right and getting the shape of the team right and getting the structure right. That's my biggest challenge, I suppose, really, is getting the right people, at the right level with the right expertise.
So that's obviously going to be one part of your role then, is making sure you've got the right staff and recruitment, etc. then, but you've kind of already mentioned that obviously titles really don't mean an awful lot to you. So what really sits behind what you do then as managing director? Like, what do you do day to day? What are you responsible for? How does that? What does that all look like?
Yeah, no, well, I think that, and again, I'm sure this is probably, I've worked in big firms, I've worked in global firms, I've worked in national firms, but I think that what probably not just for me, but I'll talk about my role now, but in small firms stands apart is that no 2 days are the same. I think in a small firm, everybody has a genuine opportunity to get stuck in and get involved in things that perhaps they wouldn't in slightly bigger firms. So, I mean, I know you asked about my role, but that obviously applies to me, but it applies to the team as well. So my days never look the same. I mean, as the MD, obviously, the buck stops with me. So I've got overall responsibility for finance, for marketing, for HR, for IT, all of that stuff. But, and obviously, again, this depends on resource, I do still do some tax work, for example, more than I probably ought to be doing. And really what I need to be doing, but again, it's about finding the right shape and structure for the team, is taking a step back and focusing more on the sort of strategy and the long term and where we want to go. And finding the time to do that is challenging, because most of my time at the moment is spent still in the doing. I don't spend most of my time doing, but there's some doing. And then, just the sort of overall management of the team. But I have recently brought in a couple of new senior individuals, one that joined in October and one that joined in January, to sort of help me lead and manage the business. I'm hoping I'll be able to then focus my time a bit differently.
Yeah. So the saying, work on the business rather than in it, is that what you're hoping to
Yeah,
do more of?
100%. Yeah. And I'm smiling because I don't know if you can tell I'm smiling over the step, because I've had and it's really important actually, because I've had a succession of really good business cases. I'm currently working with a chap called John Shinnock, who was the ex-managing partner at GT. So he's working with us in sort of NED strategic advisor role. I have been for probably a year now. But honestly, because I've been with business 9 years, I'm smiling because I know that's what I need to do, and everyone tells me that. But doing it is quite hard, especially when you're resource constrained, and then you're not, the team's not quite the right shape.
Yeah.
But I'm getting there now. I'm getting there, and we're getting there. And I'm really excited about it. 2024. I think it's going to be a really good year, hopefully.
Yeah. Do you know the thing is as well that I find hard about, like, I suppose knowing that you should do that, but not necessarily spending as much time on it as you should, is, let's face it, you probably still enjoy the tax work, because I know I always will. Getting involved in the ledge, maybe finding the answer to a difficult question, giving the advice, whatever happens, I'm always going to enjoy doing that. And so I'm naturally going to like gravitate towards doing that, even if I know it's not the best thing to say, grow the business or to solve a big challenge. You know what I mean? It's like, it's easy to fall back to that because you enjoy it. I don't know if you feel the same.
Well, it's interesting actually, because I would say, I don't know if I should be saying this on your podcast. Clearly, I know tax, and my areas that I particularly focused on in the past are sort of property tax, particularly STLT and VAT, and then sort of M&A corporate work, because that's where I did a lot of work in the legal profession as well. I wouldn't say I love tax. Like, I know what I'm doing, but I wouldn't say I love the technical side of tax. I like the clients, and I enjoy working with clients and meeting with clients and meeting with prospects. I love that. We had a great meeting with a potential client yesterday, and I loved it. I love just, finding out about clients. Sitting down, sticking my head in the ledge and writing tax technical reports, it's not really me. I mean, we had a quick chat, didn't we, before we got on the phone, about sort of profiles and personality profiles. I think if you look at my personality profile, it's just not me. I'm not that analytical and technical a person. We've got team members who are, clearly, and that you need a balance, but probably not me. So yeah, interestingly, no, I probably don't want to be doing the tax technical reports. So that's my goal for 2024, is to stop doing them entirely. I'm not sure whether I'll get there, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Different things for different people.
Yeah, though, actually, this is for me. So I love doing the research and coming to the answer. I really don't enjoy writing it up, though, into a report. So I would much rather do that and have someone else write it up for me.
Yeah, he agrees. Yeah, I think that, like you said, finding the answer is quite satisfying, isn't it? I don't mind that bit so much. But yeah, but just, but then I've never been a fan, I say I shouldn't be on a tax podcast, but I've never been a fan of, I do it and I know I have to do it, and I do it well, I think, but of sticking my head in the ledge, really. So it's not really, I don't know. I'm just not analytical, technical enough, I don't think.
Just before this, I know you said you thought I might be red and yellow in terms of these people. So for
Colour
people,
profile.
for everyone listening, red is basically someone that gets stuff done. Yellow is someone that's like good with relationships and talking to people. I actually think I'm probably quite strong in the blue category, if that's the same for you, analytics.
Analytical, yeah. The model, we've looked at two different models. It's either blue or green. It switches around depending on which model you're using. But, I can see that, and lots of tax people are, to be fair. You do, green or blue, I think, in your model is probably a natural colour for many tax professionals, because it's that analytical, technical, focus. Although ironically, we don't have many, I'll call them blues on your model, but it's greens on the model that we use, but we don't have many blues in our team at the moment. We have had at various points. But maybe so, Jack. Maybe I've got you wrong. I thought I got you right, but yeah.
Well, I can let everyone know. Once I've done it, I can let everyone know.
You can update us all, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like the BD side of things, winning work, then marketing, whatever you want to label it as, Like, are you the only person that does that then? Because for a team of like 14 people, that would be a lot of like responsibility on your shoulders. Or if you do share it across the team, how do you do that? So then you're not the only person that helps bring in
It's
work.
responsible, yeah. Yeah, and I think the one thing I'd say, and again, actually, I'm going to compare like colour profiles. My trainer on this would be very proud if he listens to this and be like, "You're selling me well there." But yeah, the one thing I'd say is like, say naturally, I think respectfully, I don't think many tax people have always great strengths in winning work necessarily, because we've just talked about, lots of tax people are more focused on the analytical, technical side, and you need that, of course you do. Um, so one of the challenges we've had in the firm, full stop, really, is finding people, you're right, alongside myself and Andy when he was here, clearly, because he did a lot of that can go out and sort of, I say, win work, talk to clients, bring fees in ultimately, because it's not really a natural position for a lot of tax people, I think. So yeah, there has been a focus. I mean, Andy, when he was here and part of ETC, that was a big part of his role when he left, and just before he was thinking about leaving, so he left in May last year. That a lot of that was then falling to me, which is fine. It's just that I've been more sort of back office operation up to that point. But to answer your question, yeah, no, we've got. I mean, I've just taken on 2 new people who are very focused and will be very focused on work winning as well as some doing. That's part of their role. And I think in a small business, what I always say to people, and there's different ways of doing it, but even my really junior people, in a small practice, I think it is slightly different. Everybody has a responsibility to try and win work. No, we don't put targets on people's head or anything like that, or you must bring in like 100 grand worth of fees or anything. That's nothing. None of that happens. But we're small and we haven't got an audit, department or a corporate finance department that are just going to feed us work. We are independent, so we have to go and look for that work. And so whether that's like writing articles or doing a webinar or whatever, everybody in our business has a part to play in that. And everybody does, to be fair. So yeah, no, it's not all on my shoulders. Clearly I've got, a responsibility, as do some of my senior team members, but everybody has a part to play.
Yeah, yeah. And I think actually, even in bigger businesses where you do have an audit function or corporate finance function or whatever it is that can help feed you work, I think if you can learn that skill early in your career for like just spotting an opportunity, you're not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
going out there looking for it, but let's just say,
No.
so I used to do this a lot when I was more junior. Like I'd be on a piece of work and I'd be thinking, well, I can help them with that because I've just come across some information that's maybe realised that they're doing something wrong, but that they could be doing something better. So I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
can talk to them about that. Let's talk to them about it. It doesn't always turn into a piece of work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But just starting to do that early in your career, I think my mindset is very much like, how can I help clients more rather than how can I win fees and take money from them in a way,
Yeah.
because that's how a
Absolutely.
lot
Yeah,
of people
yeah.
look at it, right? And that's why I think a lot of tax advisors and accountants don't like winning work because that's how they look at it. Whereas really, the more that you can help them, the more they're going to want to pay you because the more value they see in what you do. And I think if you can learn that skill very early in your career, even if you're not very good at it initially, just trying it out, it will just make you more
Yeah.
valuable in whatever role you're in. Particularly if you want to, like, say, move to become maybe a partner or run your own business one day, you're going to need those skills because you're going to
Yeah,
need to be able to
absolutely.
bring in work.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you've said there. I think it's not about, I know I've used the term selling, I know, but it's not about selling, is it? I mean, there is a skill to it, and like you say, but it's about just being interested in what the clients have got to say, and and finding solutions and asking questions and all those wonderful things. And I think you're absolutely right. If the earlier people can get stuck in doing that, even networking, I don't know what it's like where you are, but I've had a lot of juniors come through ETC saying, "Well, when I went to this networking event and there weren't anyone there that was useful." And I think, "Well, what do you mean by useful? Because I'll give you an example. I just had a conversation on the plane on the way to Tenerife over Christmas, and I was not anticipating that would lead to a potential piece of work, but it might. And that was the client I mentioned yesterday, the potential client that came in yesterday was from having sat next to her on a Ryanair plane on the way to Tenerife. So my point is, I don't go to networking thinking, right, must win a client, you go along, you just chat to people, you show interest, it helps if you are genuinely interested, which I am. But yeah, I agree. If you can just get stuck in doing that early in your career, then it really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. My view is actually in terms of networking stuff, I think get to know the person first and get along with them. And then if they know what you do, even better, But
Yeah,
I think if you're going with it the other way around and try and tell them what you do, they're not going to remember. They'll only
no,
remember that if
exactly.
they actually know you and have an interest in you first, I suppose, and get along with you. That's what I think anyway, for what
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
worth.
No, I completely agree. It's all about relationships, isn't it? And building relationships and, finding that place where, like you say, you've got that trust really. And I think, as you can tell, I do talk a lot, but I also try to listen and ask questions. So I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to be able to provide amazing tax advice, impressing your peers, colleagues, and clients, then I suggest you take a look at the Tax Advice Masterclass. In the masterclass, there's real examples from work I've done over the years where I show you what's good about it and what's bad about it. I also teach you about the hallmarks of high quality tax advice that you need to ensure are present in your advice to make sure it's high quality. Head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/masterclasses for details on how to enroll. The next one is in February 2024, and hopefully I can see you or some of your colleagues there. I know you said you do get involved in tax work still. How much do you think is a week if you can like quantify it in terms of hours, say, and how much you spent on them on everything else?
Yeah, I was thinking this before I got on the phone to you, and it's really, if because of some of the challenges we've had with people in recruitment, like I say, it's very much based on the resource we've got in the business at any given time. Although one of the things that we've struggled with a little bit is to find someone that wants to focus on some of the areas that I focus on, particularly property tax. So that's been a challenge to keep getting drawn back into that particular expertise. But I was thinking, I mean, this week, for example, I know we're only on Wednesday, but I've not touched anything technical this week already, and so we're sort of halfway through the week. Same last week. I don't think I did anything technical. They were sort of coming back from Christmas, and I've got a lot of thinking to do about the new year. But if I had to put a percentage on it at the moment, on average, it's probably no more at the moment than maybe 10%, 15% of my week. I might get like a report review or something, just a report to get out if it's just me specifically. But it has been as high as sort of, 50, 60, 70% of my week. But so I'm really trying to take a step back from that.
Yeah,
I'm just,
that's a large chunk of time, isn't it? If you're doing
yeah,
50,
yeah,
60, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
related to this, then, like, what would you say like is a normal amount of hours that you work in a week?
Yeah, again, I mean, people may not be surprised, and I think again it has been variable. I'm going to be honest. There have been times when I've been working 50, 55 hours, but recently, and again, this is about self-discipline, isn't it? I've got quite a good home routine. My husband's recently moved to Dubai, so that brings challenges with it. But because of that, I've had to put in place like a really good support network because I've got two children still, like, 14 and 11. They still need support. And so what I'm saying is, I suppose, is I tend to do quite rigid hours. So I was thinking about this earlier on. So I reckon I probably do no more than 40 hours a week at the moment, which, bearing in mind a full-time week for us is 37 and a half,
Yeah,
is pretty good. But I am very focused, and I do try to get, real bang for my buck in terms of the hours that I work, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, partly because probably my red personality, but every minute for me counts. So I'm really make sure that everything I'm doing hopefully is time well spent.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
For you personally, then, like, what would you say are like the pros to like being MD? And I think I'm right in saying 50% owner. I think whilst Andy's not in the business, you both split the ownership, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's still got shares at the moment. Yeah, because that's part of our plan really is to bring in our team into that equity position. That's definitely a genuine, long term or medium term, as I say, plan for us. But yeah, what are the advantages of being MD of a small business? When I say I love it. I do love it, Jack. Like I don't think I could be employed again. I have to be careful what I say because there might be a point when I need a job. But I run my own business and been self-employed for 9 years. It's just the independence and the flexibility that comes with that. Although, to be fair, I do try, and I think because I've lived and breathed the other side of the coin, and particularly when I had kids and the nightmare, particularly in law, that was, I do try to provide that same flexibility for my staff. I do want them to be there for families and things, and whatever commitments they have. But for me, it's just so flexible. It fits around my family life. The variety is huge. I love, like I say, the interactions with the clients. I love the fact that I actually, although I don't talk about finance itself, I'm not an accountant. I love, looking at the numbers. I love them from the marketing stuff. It's just I've seen stuff that I've not seen before. So, things like, I don't know, SEO and digital marketing, something that I would probably not have, got involved in even at a relatively senior level in firms I get involved in here, and that's really interesting for me. So it's just the variety and the flexibility. I love it.
to learn new things as well because I wouldn't know what SEO meant, by the way, if it wasn't for the podcast. So for everyone else listening, that stands for search engine optimization. And so it's when people type words into Google, it makes it more likely that your page comes up when they type the right words, basically. That's what that's all about.
That is right. Very well described. But yeah, you know what I mean? But even in like a big firm, I guess, I don't know, but I guess if you're at partner level, you're going to have like a marketing team for that, aren't you? So
Yeah.
whilst you might have some understanding, you might not have, I'm not saying I'm an SEO expert because I'm not, but you might not have the same depth of understanding. So it's just seeing, like I say, new stuff and, not tax stuff, but just new things. And like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And you might do this as well, maybe less so than me, but I always like to try doing something a little bit new. So if I've done, say, if I've delivered a course like 5 times, I'll probably get bored of it. So I think, what can I do now that's a bit different, that's a bit more fun again? So then I always try and like find something new, even if it's small, that I can have a go at, just because that just keeps me interested and engaged in things. So You know,
No, yeah, you're right.
I know there's some things I always need to do because when you're in a business or if you're a partner of a firm, you always need to make sure there's enough work coming in. You always need to make sure that you're delivering enough. But that doesn't mean you can't try something a little bit new as well that might create good results for those other areas too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, again, I'm not here dissing big business because I've worked in big practices and there are, it's horses, of course, there's different things for different people, all that stuff. But I think for me, small business is just different. Like you've got, we have to be really agile. You're right. We have to try new things. We have to, I know, big business do as well, but we have to evolve. We have to, try to stay ahead of the curve, be innovative, all that stuff. So yeah, just like you're right. I see things, I think, oh, that's really interesting. I'll have a look at that. Although the danger there is getting a bit distracted at times.
Yeah.
I should be getting focused on what I should be doing. I think, oh, I'll just have a quick look at that. That's really interesting. Like a bit of software or whatever.
Yeah. I know the part of my day where I'm always like least efficient. And so there's no point forcing myself to write a report or something like that. It's somewhere between 2:00 and 3:30. So if I'm going to do anything like that, it'll be in that time because I know I won't use it particularly well for something else anyway.
Anyway, yeah, good shout that. Yeah, no, you're right. I think I do that subconsciously. I can't think what my least efficient time is. I'm not a morning person. I wish I was. I'm a night owl. But yeah, no, I get that. You're right. Sometimes you just think I'm not, or like last week when I wasn't very well, I think Friday afternoon I wasn't feeling it because I haven't been very well. And I thought, I'm not going to be doing anything really like, not necessarily technical, but detailed here. So just have a look at some of my, have a look at some of the softwares that I'm wanting to look at or something because, why not sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So on to like challenges then instead of pros, I suppose. I know there's a lot of like typical things that people say in this category in terms of challenges you face. You've mentioned recruitment already, for example, which is something that a lot of people have. But can you think of anything that a lot of people don't necessarily describe or say is a challenge, but you find is a challenge for you? Or maybe it's just a different perspective of talking about something that other people talk about. Have you got what are like the biggest challenges for you that are like that?
I think, because obviously people would have been the top of my list. So you've thrown me now. Like in terms of people is the hardest. I think is the hardest challenge. I think in any business it's hard. People are, so different, aren't they? So it's hard. But in terms of one of the challenges, I suppose, and I'm not saying this is unique to small business, but for me personally, in my role, it's financial and cash flow management, and I think it's probably relatively not unique to our business, but because we're a tax consultancy practice, and the other thing I should say about ATC is we don't have much in the way of recurring fee income because our focus is on advisory and not compliance. We do a handful of tax returns, but only the very complex ones because that's what we're here for. It's all about making complex simple. So I think really for me, the challenge is cash flow and financial management in the sense that because everything we do is project based and advisory, and again, we don't have other bits of the business to sort of prop us up, it's making sure that the fees, so it comes back to the winning work really, but the fees are always there, and not just the fees are there, but the cash is there as well. That's a huge challenge in it. I think any small practice, but certainly a small practice that is, as I say, doesn't have recurring fee income.
Yeah. What would you say is like a bigger bit of the challenge in relation to cash? And is it winning the fees in the first place or getting clients to pay you so that you have the money there at the right time?
But you know what? And testament to my finance coordinator who's been with me about 5 years, we're pretty good at collecting. And we've got a lot of good systems in place for that. So we use Stripe and whatever. And even when at the end of jobs when we've got debtors and things, say Pamela, who's my finance coordinator, she's great at getting on the phone and just really politely saying, hey guys, you've got to pay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say collecting the cash is the problem. It comes back to that point I think we've already discussed of just winning the work, And even when you think you've won a job, it's like clients can stall or, oh, I'm not quite ready yet, or, oh, actually, can we just put a hold on this? And so, it's just challenge, isn't it? It's life. And I'm sure it's the same for many, many businesses. But when you're small, that can sort of be a kind of a challenge and a stress, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the lack of recurring fees that make it difficult. So I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast before, but obviously I work 4 days as a tax advisor and then I work 1 day on the podcast and what I like to call the associated business. So like when I do my masterclasses and any courses, any training for people, that's all there. And I run the masterclasses roughly every 6 months, but every time that I want to get people on those, I have to almost start from scratch and, start doing the BD, the marketing, the advertising, contacting people. And it's really time consuming, like super time consuming to the extent it's off putting running the classes sometimes because you need both, right? There's no point running it if there's not going to be people there. So then you have to do it. You have to make sure you're getting enough people on there to make it worth it. And so I'm just trying to think now, is there a way that I can turn this into something more recurring? Let's say let's say employers pay a fixed fee yearly, they can enroll as many staff on any of my courses then for that
Yeah,
fixed
yeah.
fee. They can have a set amount of time for me, and they agree to it, and then every year that'll just keep recurring, for example. And so I do wonder whether there could be something similar done in your business. I know it's harder when it comes to tax because some people just want one-off projects, don't they? But there might be
Yeah.
something there for recurring. We do something in my team currently where we essentially offer X amount of services per year to clients in the recruitment sector, and they pay us that fixed fee on a monthly basis, and they get all that, and that tends to work quite well.
Included. Yeah, no, I think it's really powerful, Jack. And we sat down as a sort of management team or leadership team on Monday, actually, for our first sort of kick-off this year, although our financial year is March, but it's always like January's a new year, isn't it? But so we sat down to talk about just that, and we've got a number of ideas, which I think we'll be looking at this year. I mean, we've already got like something that we call Tax Partner Pro, which is like our help desk service, which is sort of just a small monthly subscription, but that helps if we've got a number of people signed up to that and whatever. But yeah, definitely. I think it's just providing those sort of value-added services. So we've got quite a lot of ideas around that now. Again, now I've got, some new members of the team. I feel more confident about rolling some of those sort of, ideas out really. So hopefully, this year or by the end of this year, hopefully it'll look a bit different.
Yeah. So if you can crack the recurring element, your life will probably become much easier.
Yeah, just not quite as like roller coaster, basically.
Yeah. That everyone always says about, particularly like consulting teams, because employment taxes, which is my specialism, there's only P11Ds and PSAs which come around once a year, and for some reason in most firms they don't sit with employment tax teams anyway. Personal tax teams tend to deal with a lot, well, particularly P11Ds anyway. They tend to deal with them. So then we basically have no naturally recurring work, if you want to call it that, like tax returns or corporation tax returns or VAT returns, which happen in every quarter of the year. People in CT and VAT have those things to do, don't they? If they're in a compliance team anyway. Whereas we don't have that. You don't have that by the sounds of it.
No, we don't.
That's like almost a unique challenge to pure consulting teams.
It is, yeah. Like I say, it's not a unique challenge to our business necessarily, but there aren't many small independent tax consultancy purely focused on advice. There are a number out there, but not loads. So yeah, it is a kind of a specific challenge, I suppose.
Yeah. And one that's always going to be there, because you always need money coming in, don't you, to pay your staff and to keep everyone there.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you find anything like stressful about being MD and like with your responsibilities and keeping the firm going at all?
Well, again, probably to the two aspects we've just discussed, I don't want to repeat myself, but the two most stressful aspects for me are finance and cash flow management and recruitment. 100%. I mean, with a side order, I suppose, of risk. So I'll talk about something different, risk, because obviously risk is a huge factor in any practice, but particularly for tax practices, the way that the tax world has gone. And, we aren't super robust with that. But the constant change makes it hard to manage risk sometimes, in terms of legislation, but also what we're required to do from an AML point of view and all that sort of stuff. So like, I'm the MLRO for my sins, which is probably part of my job that I enjoy the least, actually. And, just, someone's going to do it, haven't they? And so I attended some AML training recently. And again, just, and I get it and I get the way the world's going, but the more requirements that are placed on us as tax professionals, so obviously now we've got to bring more process. And so I find that quite, I wouldn't say stressful, but and I don't think I should probably describe it as irritating because I know it's important, but just a pain basically.
And potentially draining, because I don't enjoy doing it either. It's just like the worst chore on the list for me every time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think, and if I'm honest, Jack, it gets to the point, and I understand fully why these things exist, but it gets to the point where, again, like I'm not in that zone at all, because I'm really positive about the future and I'm really positive about, being at ETN. I love what I do, but what with sort of the economic environment in terms of costs just ever escalating, what with the difficulty in finding people, and what with the kind of the constraints placed on us by the profession and by the AML bodies and things like that in terms of what we can and can't do, you do sort of find yourself wondering, God, is it worth it? You know what I mean? Because it's a lot, isn't it? But for me, it's worth it, and I wouldn't change it. But yeah, it can be stressful.
Yeah, you know what it is with some of these like regulations like AML. So they've been designed, haven't they, because of the few people that launder money, and then everyone else. Their solution to that is to penalise essentially everyone else to regulate that for government, because that's essentially what AML is, right? We are there to regulate and try and help them spot money laundering. And I get it's important as well, but it just becomes a pain. And I feel like they do this in tax as well a lot more now. So I don't know if you know much about R35 off payroll working, but again, government has shifted the responsibility to businesses to essentially regulate that for them, because HMRC were having so much trouble doing it when the responsibility was on them to regulate it, I suppose. And they're doing that more and more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're right. And I think we all know why it has to happen. It's still an irritation, isn't it? And like you say, it's the kind of masses that ruin it for the few, or the few that ruin it for the masses. You know, I mean, like take R&D, for example, that is complete, you know, that's not one for today, but a complete pain in the ass at the moment. We do some R&D work and we do it well, but it's complete pain now because of, you know, all the extra, you know, rules and regulations that have been brought in the way that HMRC handle the claims, the way they sit on them. So, you know, don't get me started on that stage. But yeah, it's just like you say, if it's a few and then it spoils it for the rest, doesn't it? Sadly.
It does. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Slight side note question. So, what is it that keeps you wanting to continue with your role, I suppose, and working for ETC Tax? Like, because obviously you joined from your other stuff. You've now been here for 9 years. You say you enjoy the variety and stuff, but what do you think it is that like keeps you there ultimately? Like,
Keeps you going. My husband would say I'm stubborn, and he's probably not wrong. And some of my friends would say that as well, because I think, you know, there have been times when, you know, I think all of us as small business owners, I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we didn't say there's times when we question whether we're doing the right thing, because for the reasons that I've mentioned, you know, let's say like the economics, the people, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I am stubborn, but I'm also really resilient, and ultimately I haven't achieved what I want to achieve in the business. So, you know, and you know, there is an element of frustration around that as well, as saying a lot of that comes down to finding the right people and the right team. But I think we've got really good business. I think we've got really good foundation, really good clients, really good team. All of that's there. We just, you know, and I know where I want to take it. And so, yeah, I'm just not there yet. So that, I guess that's what keeps me going. I mean, not on a personal level, you know, it affords me a nice living, but I've got a dream, and I can share with you what that dream is if you want. But
yeah, please, yeah,
I'd
please
like
do.
to achieve that. Well, I'd like to get to, you know, I suppose that eventually, if you're thinking about a possible exit, I'd like to have enough cash, not to buy a yacht, clearly, because that would be a bit ludicrous, but to be able to charter a yacht, perhaps even with a private chef, you know, this nice dream, and around the Med, you know. So that's what, you know, everyone's got to have a goal, haven't they? And that's what keeps me focused on, you know, because at the moment, you know, say I get a nice living from ETC, but in terms of like a lump sum or whatever, I suppose, I'd like to charter a yacht around the Med one day. So whether I get there or not, we'll see. But that's what keeps me focused for now.
Yeah, see, everyone ever says things like mine's much more boring than you at the moment. I just want to pay off my mortgage as soon as I
Yeah, fair
can,
enough.
which
Fair
I
enough.
know a lot of financial experts are going to tell me that's a stupid thing to do because you're locking up money in there, like it's low interest. Why not just use that money on other
Yeah.
things? But just for me, not having that there anymore to pay every month, if I lose my job or whatever, if I can't eat, if I can't have any heating, at least I've got a house, you know. At least I can stay in there and I could sell it as well and all that thing. So that's mine at the moment. That's what kind of pushes me from the financial side anyway.
Yeah, I think everyone's got to have something in there. I mean, I'm a bit on a personal level. I'm a bit of a live life for the here and now, you know, person. So we do enjoy nice holidays and stuff because I'm just like, I'm not going to take it to my grave, any money that I've got. So I'm just going to like spend it while I'm here. But you know, and just, I mean, I'm saying this to make myself look good. But the other thing that keeps me going, motivated, is sincerely, because I was talking about this with my team yesterday and my leadership team, is I'd like to have the opportunity to give back and do more. And one of my biggest frustrations is the business, whilst it's affording me good living, and the team, you know, as well, and the team are really great, we haven't yet got to the point, I don't think, where I'm able to do some of the things I want to do on the charitable side. I've got lots of ideas around that. So that's another drive for me as well. So yeah, that's why I'm still doing it, I guess, because I want to, you know, achieve more and do more.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. So before you started working for ETC Tax, though, is there anything that you feel like you wish you would have known, and could that have potentially ever have changed your decision, do you think?
I'm not sure there is anything I would have thought about or done differently. Like I say, we've gone on, you know, I've talked to death about some of the challenges again, you know, particularly around people and stuff. And perhaps had I known how hard it would be to recruit into tax, I might have rethought. But no, I just, because I love it, and I get what I want and need from it, I don't think I would have, you know, sort of thought, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't have done it. I'm quite resilient as well, Jack, you see. I'm quite lucky that I am quite resilient. I know not everybody is, but I'm also quite positive. So we've had, you know, gosh, I mean, we could spend an hour and a half or more talking about some of the very specific, again, probably people challenges we've had in the business. I mean, you name it, I kind of feel like we've seen it. Like I can't tell you the number of random, you know, challenges, experiences we've had with people in this business. But yeah, but I'm just quite resilient and I bounce back. So probably short answer is no. I don't think there is anything that I would, you know, would make me rethink, really.
Yeah. I mean, side note then, if you've had so many people challenges, that could make a really interesting separate episode.
Yeah, I'll have to be careful about what I say about some of those, because there's probably some legal aspects I'd have to be careful on. But no, yeah, I mean, I mean, I literally feel like, you know, I don't know why, maybe we just had a bit of bad luck. I think that's not that, but we, you know, you name it, we've had it thrown at us. So, you know, you got to just hopefully bounce back from stuff, haven't you, and get on with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you've got anyone out there that's, you know, considering building their own firm, maybe it's into ETC Tax, maybe it's just a tax firm that's different, or maybe they've already started one? Like, have you got any advice for these people to like help them out, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the first piece of advice would be, network. And I don't necessarily mean a network in terms of winning work. I just mean a good peer-to-peer network. So it can be, and I know others would have said this to you, I'm sure, and especially because Andy, although he was my partner in the business until May 2023, he was sort of, I can say this now, but there was a sort of slow exit, if you like. So he'd started to take a sort of a physical and mental step back a couple of years before that, probably. So for some time, it's only been me, and it's really quite lonely at times, which is why I've had sort of people like, John, my strategic advisor, working with me, because you do get, that input then. But yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I give someone is make sure you've got someone that you can almost chat to about the business, maybe not someone's not involved. But that will be my first, really critical piece of advice is, it isn't easy and you need some form of support, I'd say. So, if you've got a business partner, that might be enough because you can chat it amongst two of you or whatever. But even if it's a friend or whatever, just having someone that you can chat to about, some of the things that you're thinking about doing, some of the challenges, that'd be really, really good, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I feel like the same with the podcast sometimes because it's just me on that, and then when I'm getting to those times when it's like difficult or I'm feeling a lack of motivation for whatever, it would be nice just to speak to people about it and see what
Yeah,
what they could say. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, there's so much that you could say, isn't there, if someone's set their own business, and I'm not. One thing I would say, Jack, before we perhaps, finish in a bit, I'm not, like, I think I do a good job of running this business. So we've had our challenges, but we are, ultimately we're 9 years in and we're making money and all that stuff. But I think that I'm not, I can't lecture someone else on how to set up them or run their own business or, how to make it a success. I know a lot of people try to do that, out there, but because ultimately I came into this business, I pointed myself MD, it's a bit of a joke, say I'm doing a good job of it. But yeah, I mean, it's, I can certainly offer some guidance and there's all sorts, you can think about, I mean, say all the mistakes that I've made in terms of, how we run the websites and those things, you could certainly help with very specific stuff like that. But yeah, if anybody wants to, contact me and is thinking of doing it, I'm more than happy to have a chat. I'm always happy to support other people that are setting up on their own.
yeah, thank you. That's kind. For people who want to like contact you then, or learn more about you, where are the best places for them to go to do that?
Yeah, well, any number of places. I say I'm active on LinkedIn. I've had a bit of a hiatus on that. Actually, I need to get back into that. But I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so LinkedIn's always a good spot. Angela Wood at ETC Tax, or you can just email me, which is angela.wood@etctax.co.uk. We obviously got a website as well, so any of those places really, or through you, Jack, if it needs to be. But yeah, just reach out to me on the web or by email, or LinkedIn is probably the best bet.
So that was Angela Wood, Managing Director of ETC Tax, and hopefully you enjoyed listening to her talk about her role and how she got there, particularly how she essentially gave herself the Managing Director title. All links mentioned throughout this episode are in the show notes for this episode at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/TTPP94. Those links do include a link to the Tax Advice Masterclass, the next one of which I'm delivering in February 2024. It includes a link to Angela's LinkedIn profile and her email address too. If you enjoyed this episode, then to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes of the podcast, you can head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/subscribe to sign up for email notifications. Episodes are bi-weekly and are released on Mondays. But that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed the episode and have taken away some useful points to help you to progress, develop, and improve your career. Until next time.